speaker, Dr. Stanley Jones. He graduated from Texas Tech University with a degree in chemistry, the University of Texas Southwest Medical School in Dallas, an internship at the University of Utah, and a 4-year residency at the University of Texas Medical School in Houston. He spent a year at the Wesley Hospital in Toronto, Canada, and completed a spine fellowship for expertise in low back surgery, and served as a captain in the U.S. Medical Corps. Dr. Jones was the first person to bring commercially available stem cells to America with the help of Governor Rick Perry. Dr. Jones continues to operate as the president and owner of Spine Care, and he continues to enjoy treating back pain patients with minimally invasive techniques, and he will be speaking today about stem cell therapy.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to make this very informative. I want to educate people about stem cells and what we're doing. I want to take an overview of looking at traumatic brain injury, and I want to look how that relates to all other injuries and all other diseases, and how we can all come together and understand stem cell therapy a little bit better. I'm Stanley Jones, like she said, and I'm so happy to be here so that we can talk about stem cell therapy and what happens in different injuries and different diseases. Restoring the brain and trying to make the brain function seems like an incredibly difficult and impossible task. It's probably one of the greatest challenges in the 21st century, and it's a universal challenge throughout the world. The brain is a difficult organ to deal with, and a lot of that has to do with the blood-brain barrier and trying to get therapy through the blood-brain barrier to the brain where nutrients and other things like stem cells can go. Thanks to the science and technology that we have today, we're learning a way to bypass the blood-brain barrier and get stem cells through the blood-brain barrier and have people recover in a more substantial way. There was an article just this year in Pharmaceutical Journal, and it said stem cells will redefine the way we treat strokes, restore brain tissue, and even stop the damage from happening in the first place. And that's what we're working on. And in the future, that's going to be commonplace, we hope. Stem cells are amazing. Every one of us has billions and billions of stem cells, but sometimes we can't get the stem cells to work appropriately. Sometimes the stem cells become overwhelmed, they become lethargic, they become senescent, and they quit working. And so what we're doing is we're trying to harness stem cells to start functioning in a different way. So we take at Celtex a little bit of fat, a little bit of adipose tissue. We separate the stem cells or mesenchymal stem cells from the fat, and we put the mesenchymal stem cells in culture, and we culture those cells into the hundreds of millions. And we think that hundreds of millions of stem cells is the only way to go. Too many people, as we've talked earlier about some of the local orthopedic surgeons, chiropractors, pain medicine doctors, whomever, have promoted stem cell therapy. And stem cell therapy, as it's done in America currently, is not very beneficial for most of the things we're talking about here. What we have to do is we have to have a culture technique and a culture system to grow stem cells into hundreds of millions, and that takes 6 to 8 weeks to accomplish. Once we've accomplished that, then we're ready to start giving stem cell therapy to anybody in need the way that it should be given, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll show you why. I kind of know a lot about stem cells because as a practicing orthopedic spine surgeon for many, many years, I was doing quite well, and one day I began to have horrible pain in my joints, and before I knew it, I was diagnosed with inflammatory arthritis, and it was really bad. It was a combination of psoriatic and rheumatoid arthritis. And so the rheumatologist said, well, you know, I'm so sorry because, you know, people like you never get well. And I thought, oh, it's great to hear that. Okay, so I get on the conventional medicines, and I'm taking high doses of typical conventional American medicines, and I get sick as a dog, and I get candidiasis, I can't swallow, I'm wallowing away, I just give up, I'm in a corner at home, just ready to quit, I'm in a wheelchair. I couldn't do anything. Before I knew that, I was just devastated. And I started looking for a way out, and the way out I found was through a facility in Asia that was doing stem cell therapy and made people with spinal cord injury better. Not only did they make people better, but they found that they were safe. And safety was the name of the game as far as I was concerned, because even though that paper hadn't been published, I felt confident that I needed to try that. Otherwise, I was going to wither away. My wife had Raynaud's disease, which is a combination of a vascular problem and not just in the hands and feet. She decided to have therapy with me, so we went together, and not knowing what we would have and how it would be done, we were amazed at the people we met and how many people in Asia had gotten better with stem cell therapy. So before I even knew how much better I might be, I was on the phone calling Governor Perry and asking him if we couldn't start this therapy in Texas. America needed this therapy. We were way behind. And why couldn't we do this in Texas? So that started the dialogue. He put me off for a long time, but I never let it go. And when I got back, I started getting better. I started feeling better. My wife was really functioning normally within 3 months. And within 5 months, I was totally asymptomatic. And I was euphoric, obviously. And I decided that if I could get this much better, what else could I do for people in need? And I couldn't imagine, if I can do this, why I shouldn't be able to help other people. So I started that task, and we got stem cell therapy approved by the Texas Medical Board. We got stem cell therapy approved by the Department of Human Health Services. We got a Texas Medical Board really supporting it to the extent that the Texas legislature even passed a law in Texas allowing stem cell banks to be legalized in Texas and to be used by licensed Texas physicians for those needs that they thought their patient would best benefit. I'm not catching up here, am So, let me go back to where I should be. So, we are a very specialized company. We took the therapy that we got from Asia, and we made it better. And we've made it better, we made it better, we made it better. So, I think personally, we are the best maker of mesenchymal stem cells in the world. Mesenchymal stem cells are those cells in your body that are part of the stem cell system, but they're not just general stem cells. They're specific cells that can become bone, cartilage, nerve, muscle, fat. And we did all this work through the FDA. We're compliant with the FDA. We work under their rules. And we developed a partnership with Galenia Hospital in Mexico because after we had been in business for a year and a half as a licensed viable company in Texas, the FDA asked us to shut our operations in September 2012 because we that created a drug. Well, we didn't think we had a drug as your own stem cells, and we take one's own stem cells and culture those into the hundreds of millions. So we weren't using anybody else's DNA, we weren't using anybody else's material of any kind, and yet the FDA asked us to stop because we don't have a license to produce this drug. So we found a hospital with Governor Perry's help again in Cancun, in Community Hospital in Cancun. So we treat and have worked with, we don't treat, we provide cells for doctors who treat different injuries, neurodegenerative brain, autoimmune, degenerative, and vascular diseases. Mesenchymal stem cells are a very mature field. Currently 100,000 papers plus are being written every year. And there have been no adverse effects of stem cells from the mesenchymal stem cell variety we create. The U.S. has been slow to accept stem cell therapy for reasons I don't understand. But Charlie's Law was passed by Texas legislature this year, and Governor Babbitt just signed that into law. So this year, as we continue to work through the bureaucracies, stem cell therapy should be available in Texas as the only state in the union, and hopefully by 2018. I want to show you a video. I've already talked about proprietary expansion banking. Cell populations that we grow can make 1 billion in about 5 weeks. What we think we need to do is grow stem cells into the hundreds of millions, get up to 1 billion if that's what's necessary, and provide at least 100 million, 200 million to people each time we give stem cells. We're the only company that can produce and does produce mesenchymal stem cells from autologous sources yourself in the hundreds of millions and make them perfect. All of our work has been correlated and verified by MD Anderson Hospital and by the University of Texas Medical School. So we create almost 100% mesenchymal stem cells. Slide is our video is. Our hospital in Mexico is Colombia, and it's a beautiful place. It's a private hospital, and the hospital that we use has doctors trained in America. They all speak English, and they're fabulous physicians. We're lucky to have found them, and we've done over 4,000 therapies now, working with Cancun and Colombia Hospital. We can talk about our heroes and some of our patients, and I'm going to go through a bunch of patients. I also wanted to show you the lab. I'll show you that in just a second. But this is Sarah Hughes and this is Tucker Bowe. And these two kids, or youngsters, proved a lot of what we wanted to prove, and I'll go through that with you in just a second. Go ahead. If you look on the left, that was the American Arthritis Foundation run that they have every year. And in 2014, Sarah was in a wheelchair. She weighed 82 pounds. Tucker Bowe was in a stroller. He was 6, she was 22. And at age 6, he weighed 35 pounds and wasn't thriving. A year later, after stem cell therapy, Tucker Bowe ran the 5K, and Sarah walked the 5K. And she had never been out of a wheelchair in 8 years, and he had never been out of a stroller. This is Sarah the day after stem cell therapy at 82 pounds, and she hadn't stood like this in 8 years. So can you imagine one day after stem cell therapy, she's standing, washing her feet. You can see how skinny and thin she is. She's very stiff. She has a stiff man syndrome as well because of the different enzymes that were abnormal. She had horrible biomarkers that wouldn't allow her to get well. She had systemic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis with dysautonomia, so she couldn't absorb food. None of her nutrients that were given to her worked. So she was dying. She was given 6 months to live, and we decided we better try to help. Okay. Autologous adipose stem cell therapy. The book Stem Cells in Development is very popular, and we have those 2 children we just showed that were written up in this magazine as the first time that any of the pediatric physicians had seen recovery like this. And it's still been a hard sell, even with all the stuff we've shown. Go ahead. If you looked at Sarah back then, and that was in April of 2016, and I'll show some more pictures here in a minute. What a transition, huh? And she's been riding horses every day. I'm going to go back to I want to show you all the lab function, so there's a video.
At Celltex Therapeutics, the well-being of our clients is at the forefront of everything we do. From the moment fat is extracted until the moment our clients receive therapy in Mexico, their cells are handled with care, processed with precision, and stored securely. Let us show you how. First, a client must be determined eligible for cell banking. This is accomplished by a simple blood screen for certain communicable diseases. After the client is verified as eligible, a qualified physician extracts 10 to 20 cc's of the client's fat, which is then sent to our CGMP-compliant laboratory. The fat is received by our quality control department, where it is properly documented. A series of tests is carefully conducted by QC to assess the fat's eligibility to enter the clean room. A small portion of the sample is used in the testing process. Proper procedures are always followed to ensure that both the testing environment and the samples are free of contamination. At every step of our process, the sterility of the client's sample is of utmost importance, and we take extra care to ensure that it is not compromised. We conduct a series of tests to detect the presence of any contaminants, such as bacteria, fungi, and mycoplasma. The sample is then transferred to our cell manufacturing clean room for processing. First, by centrifugation, the excess blood is separated from the fat and discarded. An enzyme is then added to digest the fat. Then what remains is a collection of cells known as the stromal vascular fraction, which contains the mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs, needed for therapy. This fraction is then further separated to obtain the pure MSCs. Once the MSCs have been isolated, they are maintained on a daily basis and routinely observed to make sure they are healthy and free of contamination. As the MSCs multiply in culture, cell counts are performed. Cells are frozen at every stage and stored in liquid nitrogen. When cells are bagged, they are frozen in a control rate freezer. The cells are again tested for quality control for mycoplasma, bacteria, and fungi to ensure they are free of any contaminants. This verifies the sterility of the cells and confirms that they will be ready when the client needs them. The cells are bagged in a liquid nitrogen cryotank. At extreme cold temperatures, MSCs can be stored for decades with virtually no loss of quality. When cells are needed for therapy, the vials are removed from the bank and thawed, so they may be freshly cultured. The MSCs are allowed to expand for 13 days. Cells are removed from their culture environment and washed several times to remove their growth medium. The cell suspension is then centrifuged to separate the MSCs from the enzyme, and a series of washes with various buffers is performed to eliminate all media residues. The MSCs are counted before being suspended in sterile saline and packaged in syringes. This is the final product that is administered to clients in Mexico. A representative sample of the final product is submitted to quality control, where multiple tests are once again performed. Sterility, endotoxin, and mycoplasma tests are conducted on the final product to ensure it is free of any contaminants. Cell concentration, appearance, and viability are also checked by QC, and the final product is sent to Quality Assurance. Quality Assurance reviews the product as well as documentation and performs final verification to ensure that every step was executed perfectly. Once this has been confirmed, QA releases the final product. The final product is then packaged in a validated temperature-controlled box for transport to Mexico. A temperature logging device is placed in the box to verify that the MSCs are maintained at the correct temperature during transit. Once the shipment arrives in Mexico, the logger's data is reviewed to ensure that the specific conditions were maintained during the entire journey. Every step of the way, Celltex is ensuring the quality and safety of our clients' stem cells. It is our mission that each of our clients experience the healing power of their own body for years to come.
That's a pretty good overview of the lab, and the lab is fairly sophisticated. What I'm really proud about is that we started this with just 2 people in 2011, and we built it now to have such wonderful people as Reese and about 38 other people that work for Celltex. We have 12 people in the lab at all times. We're growing stem cells 24/7, 365 days a year. So somebody's always babysitting those cells. This is Tucker Bowe, and Tucker Bowe was one of my own superheroes. He was the youngster that was 6 years old when we started his therapy. He was dying. He had juvenile rheumatoid systemic arthritis. He had dysautonomia. He was unable to eat. He was unable to absorb nutrients. So his parents had done everything. He was on chemotherapy. He was on high doses of steroids, et cetera, et cetera. So he wasn't thriving. He was sick as a dog. So he had an alter ego of being Batman. And he went around and talked about how Batman was going to cure his pain. And I fell in love with the little guy because he wanted to get well so bad. And we'd never treated anybody this young. And in America, we could never treat a child this young. So it was almost a godsend that we were in Mexico and that we could treat a 6-year-old. So we took a chance and we gave him cell therapy. His parents had never seen his kneecaps because his knees were so swollen all the time. And he couldn't eat. Within a week, his swelling was all gone. He was running around Cancun eating like a pig. And he started to thrive. Okay? He now plays lacrosse. And he's gone from somebody who's in the hospital all the time with a port, with tubes, with everything. And they plays lacrosse. Isn't it amazing? So he came to see me the other day. He comes by once in a while. He came by to see me, just say hello, and ran in and jumped in arms and hugged me. And there's no greater gift to me than seeing something like that. Okay. We'll skip that. We skip that. Let's go through that. Now, this is not traumatic brain injury. We'll go to that in a minute. But this is what cells can do in general. This man came to see me this last 2 years ago. And he fell trying to get in the door. He fell 3 times trying to say hello. He couldn't talk. He had Parkinson's. He was shaking terribly. And he couldn't function. His wife was taking care of him totally. And he couldn't get out of the chair when he finally got in the chair. So this is 4 months post-therapy. Show that now. Make that video.
No,
Not do the other one. Oh, it's okay.
so this is the before and this is after.
It's amazing. This is after therapy. Sit down again. You can see both he couldn't get out of the chair, so I asked him if he could get out of the chair. So he jumped out of the chair. I asked him to walk down the hall, and he walked. But what's amazing is he came to see me by himself. He drove himself to the clinic. He walked in by himself and he said, "Good morning, Dr. Jones. I asked him when he could start talking." I I asked him when he could start talking, and he said it took me 3 months to be able to talk. But my smell came back in 2 months. And I thought, smell? I didn't even know he had a problem smelling. He didn't have any smell. So he's turned the corner like a lot of these Parkinson's patients have. Multiple sclerosis. This is Stephanie. Stephanie has been a champion for cell therapy in Texas. She has primary progressive multiple sclerosis and has gone downhill the last 5 years to where she can't even get around. She couldn't get out of bed. So she's now got her own wheelchair. She's up. She can raise her arms. This was a big deal for her. She couldn't raise anything. She couldn't function. So when she comes in, she's the happiest girl in the world. Can you imagine somebody being so happy and still disabled? But she went to the legislature this year and by herself really purposely pushed the legislature to vote for this bill. And the bill passed this year 100% because of people like Stephanie going up there and testifying. Okay. You know, Jackie Sherrill, great football player, great coach, coached at Texas A&M for years, Mississippi State, etc. Everybody seems to know Jackie. And the reason I'm bringing him up is that he is in charge of getting NFL alumni helped with all their traumatic brain injuries. And we're working with the NFL trying to help CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that these football players have. And hoping that that will be a way that we can also continue to work in a way to make brain injuries a little bit better known and to do a little bit better work. Okay? Now, this is Robert Cox. Robert, stand up. Robert was in the area, so he just stopped by today. And you see his brain, see those little holes in the side of his brain on the right? He's got big black spots where he has what's called cavernomas. And those cavernomas are abnormal blood vessels that form in such a way that it pools blood and it creates a cavity for the brain. He was having seizures all the time. He had his first seizure really bad in 2011, right? That's right. And he had another one shortly, or 6 months there afterwards. Then he started having seizures very frequently. And it became almost a nightmare for him. He couldn't function. He couldn't work, he couldn't do anything because of the brain fog that he had after those seizures left him in a fog most of the time. And he really couldn't function. So he called me and he said, you know, Dr. Jones, I work in the regenerative medicine field myself. I sell amniotic tissue for wound healing. And I know a lot about stem cells. And I think this would be good for me. So I called one of the best neuroradiology people I ever knew, and she said, no, it wouldn't work. Nothing has ever helped cavernomas. And those people never get better. And I said, okay. So I called Robert, and I said, Robert, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think we should do this. And he said, look, I want to do it anyway. I want to try it. Please let me try it. So we did it. And he's proof today that even things that we don't know can be made better. And my point is that we don't really understand how stem cells really work and how they do their thing. We know the physiology. We know that chemokines are created. We know chemokines have receptors. And those receptors bring chemokines in. They also then supplement other nutrients. So your growth factors are released. And then all the anti-inflammatory factors are massive. So all that occurs, but then how does it all make people better? That's still a big question, but Robert today has functioned wonderfully for something that we didn't know anything about. And now he's the only person that ever has been shown to improve with stem cells because he's the only guy that's ever done it. That's where, that's kind of where we are with stem cell therapy in medicine today, and it's a shame we can't get the FDA behind us so they'll even listen to things like this. Okay? Thank you, Robert, for being here.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go over traumatic brain injury. This is Braden, and I get teary-eyed thinking about this because what a super little guy. And I look at you, Chris, and I see, I talk about all these other kids who have had injuries like this. He had a brain injury because he was shot in the chest with a pellet gun, accidentally, and the pellet gun injury kept him kept his heart from beating. He quit breathing. He was anoxic for 22 minutes, so he's brain dead. He had a stroke, and this is him shortly after he was admitted. Okay. This is about 6 months, 6 months, 8 months later, still that way. You know, the doctors were beginning to give up that he couldn't get better. But he continued to improve gradually, got a little bit better. And then here he is with J.J. Watt in 2015. This is really 2 years after his injury. But he couldn't see. And then we did stem cell therapy. There he is in Galenia Hospital, getting his stem cells that he was trying to get better. Couldn't really function, couldn't see, couldn't talk. Okay. And now, there he is on the left interacting with his siblings, and he can now run, he can write, he can talk, he can read, he can do everything. The only problem he has is his left hand doesn't function quite as well. But he now sees 20/60, which is pretty darn good. And we think with more therapy, he can continue to get better. Okay? There he is today. That's a more recent picture. Okay? So, traumatic brain injury and stem cells. You know, who knows where we can go with all this? I'm here to just tell you what we're doing and show you what can happen with some of these things and some of the people we're treating. Just so that you can take this back and realize that of all the people, we've done over 4,000 therapies in Galenia Hospital in Cancun now. Our multiple sclerosis patients are 79% major symptom improvement. Parkinson's disease, 73% major symptom improvement. You know, we're working now on trying to find ways to make the brain function better and the body overall function better. And I think the foods that you learned a while ago and the supplements that we all should be taking are also vitally needed for nutrition for stem cells. Traumatic brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability in the United States. You know that? Every day, 153 people die from injuries that include TBIs. 30% of all injuries and deaths are TBIs, traumatic brain injury. And look at the children, 329,000 plus were treated in the United States in 2013 for TBI-related events. That's a big number. So how do stem cells help the injury in the brain? You know, when a brain is injured, an incredible inflammatory response occurs all over the body. And that inflammatory response sets off a cascade of the body trying to heal. So stem cells are being created, but there's not enough to make things happen. So what we know now is if we give stem cells, the stem cells will home, you know what I mean by going home? They home to the site that they're needed. Stem cells know where to go. Stem cells go either locally, like to the brain, or they go distally to the body to make things better and get rid of the inflammatory component. They also work immunologically in inhibiting cells we don't want, stimulating T regulatory cells. So with all that, you get a cell-cell contact. And here's the way it works. The immune cell and the stem cell attract each other. And when the immune cell attracts the stem cell, 144 growth factors are released. And the anti-inflammatory factors are spun off. So that creates soluble factors, cytokines, only on the left, that then increases angiogenesis, or new blood vessel formation. And that new blood vessel formation also works to have cell replication differentiation take place. But at the same time, the local homing regenerates new cells and continues to make new cells and prevents cell death. So that the brain, for instance, if you do local homing and you use the cytokines and the angiogenesis effect, then neuroblasts are formed that don't die off. And they don't die off because the stem cells inhibit caspases, which are enzymes that want to cause apoptosis or cell death. So if we can prevent cell death and we can stimulate regeneration and differentiation into more neuroblasts that then become neurons, then the brain gets better. That makes sense? Okay, next. That's your stem cells. That's what stem cells look like. It's amazing. It's a little vial, and that has 200 million stem cells. So I'll tell you a funny story before we move on. Funny story, I took a vial like that over here in Austin for Governor Perry's surgery. He had his collarbone fixed. After he dropped out of the pregnancy race, he had a broken collarbone he wanted to get fixed. So we talked to the orthopedic surgeon here, and the orthopedic surgeon said, well, I've got to take hip bone, I've got to take pelvic graft to make his fusion of that collarbone well. And the Governor Perry says, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have that stuff, no. He said, he called me up and he said, will you bring me some stem cells? So I brought this little box, over here, and I walked in the hospital over here in Austin. And the nurses and the doctors met me and said, where's the stem cells? Where are the stem cells? They had never seen anything like, what stem cells? What is that? What's in a vial? Just like a little vial. And that little vial had 200 million stem cells, and we mixed that with an organic bone base, and he was doing pull-ups in 3 months. His collarbone healed. That's another way stem cells can work. Now, what we're working for and looking for is a way to make brain injuries get better fast, okay? So, if we look at the brain, and we look at the cribriform plate, the olfactory bulb, which is your smelling area, the smelling nucleus, and you look at the fibers of the olfactory nerves. If we take stem cells and we put them in the nose, and Robert Foss can verify this, if we put stem cells in the nose, they're picked up through the microvascular circulation of the nose. They are then fed into the fibers of the olfactory nerves. They go through the cribriform plate. And from the cribriform plate, they migrate to the cerebrospinal fluid. And from the cerebrospinal fluid, they then migrate into the brain coming out of the brain. So, for instance, at A&M, Texas A&M, we're working with Texas A&M on Alzheimer's. And if we take mice that have Alzheimer's, and they're goofy, okay? And they have no brain activity in the hippocampus. By section, by microscopic section, there's no activity in the hippocampus. You give them stem cells, you give them these exosomes, which are byproducts of stem cells, in the nose. All the mice get well. Alzheimer's goes away. So, what is an exosome? An exosome is a byproduct of the stem cell that becomes an invisible vesicle. And that vesicle then is picked up in the brain, wherever it's needed, but it migrates to the sites of needed repair. So in the brain, if you have Alzheimer's, it goes to the hippocampus. And they've shown after therapy that the hippocampus starts being active again and cellular activity picks up like crazy. And the mice start acting normal again. So we're ready to start trials this next year, hopefully, to start working on exosomes. Now, our theory and our plan is to take exosomes, and they can be put on the shelf. Once we get an exosome, and the exosomes are produced appropriately, we can take exosomes and have them on the shelf, and the minute a child, an adult, anybody has a heart attack, traumatic brain injury, stroke, whatever, we can give exosomes immediately, and the exosomes will go to do the repair. And, you know, it's just like we think that when a football player gets a concussion, we can have exosomes on the sideline and give somebody exosomes intravenously and prevent injury in the brain. Okay? So, you know, here we are, cell tax is working away. We're trying to do good for mankind. We're trying to do good. We keep getting roadblocks, but so far we've passed all the roadblocks, and we're going to continue to work hard on what we're doing and trying to make people better. Now, there's Sarah today, the little girl you saw a while ago. That's her mom. Sarah has turned out to be a gorgeous young woman. She weighs 130 pounds now. She's getting married. She'd never dated. She'd never been out of bed. She'd never been out of a wheelchair. She didn't think about dating. And here she is getting married. So what she said is, before she had therapy, they asked her what she would like out of this therapy. And she said, just one thing. Just one thing. I don't want a lot. I'll just take anything. Please, just anything. And boy, you know, here she is today. That's stem cell therapy, and that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do to everybody. And I look at all your parents and families that have kids with injuries. I mean, we'd love to try to help. And can we help? I always tell everybody, I don't know, but if I had a child with that, or if I had that disease, or I had whatever you got, would I try it? Hell yeah, I'd try it. I never, ever imagined that I would get well from what I had. My brother's an orthopedic surgeon, he's over. And when I talked about going to Asia to get stem cell therapy in 2009 and 10, he says, are you an idiot? What do you think stem cells are going to do? And I said, well, if you lived in my body, you would understand, and you would do anything to get better. And I think they can make me better, but that's my hope. So I had hope that I'd get better, and all I'm trying to do now is have people, let people have hope that they can get better. And we, by that and a good deal of prayer, it's amazing how many people we've helped. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes?
So Parkinson's disease, how, like end-stage Parkinson's disease, have you found it to be helpful, or do they need to be recently diagnosed?
You know, that's a great question. The earlier we get people, the better. But people that have Parkinson's even for a few years have improved, not to the degree that they do if they had original onset. So we always try to tell people, let's get started early.
And then autism, are you seeing?
Autism is something that we want to start treating. We've been asked by several pediatricians to start looking at Alzheimer's, at autism, and I personally think that autism is one of the hardest and most difficult diseases to treat there is otherwise. So why not use cell therapy? Let's see if we can make people better. And you know, some of these kids, we've tried to do a couple, and then we've got to pull back. But that's my goal, is to start working on autism.
So you haven't actually done any yet?
We've done none yet. No.
Okay.
No. But I can't imagine it would work. You know, dysautonomia, nobody knows this, but dysautonomia is the most prevalent disease in the world. And nobody knows what that even is. But dysautonomia is when the autonomic nervous system quits functioning appropriately. So, cluster migraine headaches, severe migraine headaches, that's probably dysautonomia. And as it progresses, people want to kill themselves. People have killed themselves because of these horrible cluster headaches. They then end up with a problem absorbing nutrients. So it's all related. And I've been working with the pediatric department at University of Texas in Houston, and they're treating nothing but dysautonomia. And all the I mean, you can't believe these kids we see that come in with tubes all over. I saw a girl the other day, she had 3 tubes. And I said, what's this tube? She said, well, that's the jejunal tube. And I said, okay, that's in the small intestines. I said, okay, what's that for? Well, that's when I drink, because I won't throw up, it just runs out this tube. I said, oh, okay. What's this tube for? Well, this tube is to drain my stomach when I get really nauseated and I'm going to throw up, and I have too much of it. I just have to drain this. Okay. So how do you get nutrients? Well, this is my tube up here, and I get my nutrients through here. And she's a beautiful young girl. And I bet I've seen 20 this year just like that. And that's dysautonomia. And you know that every dysautonomic case we've treated so far has gotten so much better, they're almost totally well, like Sarah. I like Tucker Boat. Yes?
So I have 3 things. First, we need to wrap up because it's almost time. But I have 2 other questions. So one is, have you had any adverse effects? And my second question is, like, Sarah, is this just a one time you give her stem cells, or does she have to have so many a year? How does it work?
Okay, so Sarah was the case and Tucker Boat was the same case. We didn't know how to treat their disease. I mean, we're the first company ever to do this stuff. So we're kind of flying by the ideas. We're making up therapies, okay? So it was our goal to supplement them both so much that we didn't want their disease to recur. So we started giving them stem cells 4 times a year for the first 2 years. And so they had to go to Cancun quite often, but now we're every 6 months. This next year, and they've done well, so this next year we'll go to every year, once a year. And then we'll see how we go from there, because what I'm hoping is their immune system has been boosted so much that they may not need any more therapy.
Do they start to see a decline if they don't, if they miss a week or something at all?
No, we have not, but we're afraid not to. I don't want them to. I don't want them to regress. And so, because I'm learning, and we're learning as we go, I'll be truthful about that, because nobody else has ever done this. And if we continue to do this, we have to continue to try things. And that's what bothers me about the FDA. The FDA doesn't want us to try anything. And when I try to I was talking to the FDA the other day, they make things so difficult that you just want to give up. And that's when Mexico has been so wonderful to us, because we've been able to show people how much better these folks can be because of Mexico. And that's what it has. That's what it takes. You have another question? What was it?
Adverse effects.
Who adverse effects? I always love it when these advertisements on TV to show a drug. You will have nausea, vomiting, blah blah blah. You may have leukemia. You may have you may die.
Yeah.
We have no adverse effects, none. Out of 4,000 plus 4,500 therapies now, no adverse events. Yeah, isn't that amazing? But it's your own DNA.
It's your own cells.
It's own cells.
So your body's not rejecting it.
Yeah.
And even if the worst case is that it would do nothing. Your body the cells didn't get to the spot they need to get to, and it would just do nothing. But like in my case, every time I've gone through it, it's improved every time. And the first time we did it, the improvement was huge. I went from having 3 seizures a week to having 1 in 6 months. And now I'm down to where I don't have seizures. It's an amazing thing.
And are you on any medication?
I'm still on my medication, the same I was on before. That I've been on for 5 years. I don't want to necessarily completely give it up just to be safe,
Yeah.
because I don't want to start having seizures again. At some point, I'll either bring the dose down, or I'll just get rid of it completely. At this point, I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to start having seizures. But as I continue to see an improvement every time, I'm fairly certain that at some point it's going to be done.
And your brain fog's gone?
Because I'm not having the seizures, so I'm not. I mean, it is such a different world.
I'm a big believer in nutrition too, just like you were talking, because if we don't have enough magnesium, if we don't have enough vitamin D, if we don't have enough glutathione, if we don't have some of these things that we should have, probiotics, I like your comment about the prebiotics. All these things are so important, and if we don't have those, then we have people slipping backwards. So we make sure, and I like the vitamin D level to 100. If I can get people to 100, I like it.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
You're welcome.